videotape is part of the Video Oral History Project of the Colony Public Library of the City of the Colony, Texas. This interview is with Dr. Lee Knox of 1213 Amherst, Denton, Texas. Dr. Knox is Professor of Geography, Earth Sciences at North Texas State University. This interview is taking place at the Colony Public Library on Sunday, May 19, 1985 at approximately 5 p.m. My name is Katherine Jagoe. I'm an interviewer for the Colony Public Library Video Oral History Project. Dr. Knox, would you please state your name for us and then tell us a little bit about your background, such as where you grew up and where you got your educational training and so forth?
I am Lee Knox. I'm at North Texas State University at the present time and will be through the rest of this year. I've been in the Denton County area for about 35 years and watched a great deal of evolving that's taken place here. Actually, I'm a native of Oklahoma, born at Will Rogers' hometown, I guess one would say, up at Claremore. I have degrees from Oklahoma State, both bachelor's and master's, and I've done the advanced doctoral work at Nebraska, University of Florida, and at the University of Oklahoma, where I did my residence. I came to North Texas in 1949, and we have called it home. We have made it home, and our children know nothing but this area, and it's been a tremendous place to raise family.
Great. Well, tell me about your family. What's your wife's name and your children's names?
Well, we have, of course, the wife, June, and she grew up as a child. Her folks were in the Indian service and taught in the Indian service, so they were from place to place on government lands. And then, of course, I met her while we were in school at Oklahoma State University. We have 3 children, and surprisingly, all of them are still in Denton County. They're all married. We have our oldest son, Stephen, Denton, Texas. He's with Pargas. Our second child is Thomas, and he's with Jostin Jewelry. And, of course, our daughter is Elise, and she is married to James Althaus down here at the colony itself. So that gives me a bit of a tie-in with the colony, having a daughter here and a son-in-law.
Very good. Well, I know that you've spent a lot of time researching different areas of Denton County and geography, and as you mentioned, you have seen a lot of change take place over the years in this county. Why particularly did you choose the colony as a research topic?
Well, first let me say that a part of my background is geomorphology, which is landform evolution. And I have done work on the landform evolution of Denton County, so that's put me throughout the entire county. We've been on almost every road, if not more than one time, several times. But we've been across and back and forth across Denton County, as well as many others in north central Texas. We've passed through areas of historical background, and certainly the Old Peters Colony is probably one of the finest examples of early settlement in the state of Texas. I had done some work in this area in relation to a drainage project for the city of Frisco back in the late 1960s or early 1970s. And I had walked a lot of this particular area. Then, of course, in 1974, when Fox and Jacobs filed for their first plat and development, it immediately got my attention. Who in the world would go out into an old field and establish a planned community of nothing but houses? And this is where I became interested in it, was how is it to evolve? How's it to get its water supply? Where is its electricity to come from? Where is its children to be educated? How are these homes to be built? What are some of the problems to be encountered? These were things that were only natural questions to me. And as I watched it with time, I saw more and more of the community growing. And then when our daughter and her husband moved into the colony, it gave me even a closer association. And from there on, I contacted, certainly, the city personnel And also I contacted the engineer for Fox and Jacobs and started with a complete study. I had access to geological site and situation. I had access to climatological data, to natural vegetation. I had access even to some of the early historical settlement. I think the colony is so unique in that, again, the streets in the colony are named from the early people who settled here. And these have meaning, historical value, a part of the overall. But you ask a question. I made this study, and I might say that I have used it for an hour seminar at the university, and also it was delivered as an invited paper at the national meeting of the Association of American Geographers in Denver, Colorado. So I have utilized the study and enjoyed making it very much so.
Okay. Dr. Knox, you mentioned briefly the historical value of the colony and that sort of factor. Can you tell us a little bit about what your knowledge is of the selection of the name, the colony, for this community?
Well, of course, it goes back to the early settlement, the old Peters colony that was established, and the routing along the Preston Road. The early families that were brought in through the Peters effort. But actually, when they started making the establishment of the colony back in 1974, they found that Texas already had a small community called Colony. So since they had a community called Colony, it was necessary then to attach the colony to make this a unique and special settlement. So that's the reason we're called the Colony out here instead of just Colony, Texas. But it's rather a unique name in itself, the Colony.
That's right. I don't think there's any other town in Texas that prefixes with the word "the" anyway.
I don't know of any.
Can you tell us some more generally about the historical settlement prior to the Peters colony? Was there any Indian activity in this area?
You had Amerindians in this region, of course. The old Comanchean overlapped through here, and there certainly were Indian trails that crossed the area. I think there were two primary east-west trails across most of Denton County that was used. And there again, a lot of the early Anglo settlements used the earlier Indian trails as the openings. My goodness, getting through the cross timbers without someone hacking your way for you would be almost an impossibility. And certainly many of the later settlers, the Anglo settlers, used the routes that had been opened as routes for the Indians earlier.
Could you kind of briefly describe for us where those routes might run and give them some present day landmarks that
I would have to go back and look up the site and location and where they actually cross various parts of the Elm Fork. So I think it'd probably be a little safer if I would look that up.
That's just fine. I know that since you did your original research that you have continued to update your information. Are there any significant factors that come to your mind that you would like to comment on since that original research?
I think that probably there are about three major ones that I would come forth with, and one, of course, is the most recent emphasis has been placed upon widening and broadening the 121 highway. This certainly will give greater access and more rapid transportation to the people that are commuting from here. That's one of the most critical things that the colony is faced with is transportation. A second that has moved along and is doing quite well is the development of additional shopping centers and that of variety of stores that are now coming into the colony. That's bringing competition, it's bringing additional jobs, and certainly, again, another of those things that I've looked around the area beyond the colony more than any place else, but I can see industry moving closer to the colony, and I can see people that will be able to work far closer home now than they were, let's say, in the past year or 2 years, 3 years ago. The colony, I think, will continue to be primarily a bedroom community. It's growing with age,
Mm-hmm.
and I still say that it's one of very few communities that I know that has only one cemetery and they're not using it. But they closed it down when they started building, and certainly we are finding all of the amenities that are needed coming into the colony. There's your medical industry is coming in. There's varieties of stores that are coming in. There are service industries that are coming in. These are coming in, and I think probably one of the greatest things that I see, of course, is that of the educational facilities that are coming in. A new projected high school, a recently opened junior high school, additional elementary schools, and of course one would have to admit that the colony is a younger generation. They're made up of young people and of families, and they're doing well in their planning for this, I think.
Okay. Since your background is in the area of both geology and geography, could you comment perhaps on the change of land use from farmland to community, and what does that mean to an area? Is there anything really significant that we need to be aware of?
I think perhaps in going back, of course, as we increase our population, needs and demands for land for urban settlement, for urban use, we're losing a great deal of farmlands.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I do recall about the colony in general is that most of the land was that of old fields. There is still, in parts of the colony, I think hay and some sorghum being even baled today. I think you can still see that on peripheral edges.
Mm-hmm.
But this is to disappear as more and more people move in. I am quite pleased in many ways with the green belts in the colony. This will give us an area of vegetation, and part of it will be the recovery of natural vegetation.
Mm-hmm.
We have a nearness certainly to Lake Louisville. Here again is another green belt or recreational area. I think that the colony is quite well endowed with having these recreational regions nearby, as well as those that are planned within the colony.
Mm-hmm.
So I find, of course, that as demands for land for urban settlement take place, we're losing more and more of our lands for our rural agricultural practices. And to be sure, the old blackland prairies have been one of the most productive areas for agriculture in the state of Texas for many, many years. I do think that even though our urban settlements are taking over a great part of this land, that throughout the blackland prairies there has been a general reduction in land use.
Mm-hmm.
And this is noticeable throughout, going south and so on. I am very pleased to see the recreational and greenbelt facilities, though, that are so close to the colony.
That's good, yeah. Are there any other significant things about the colony that you would like to comment on?
I think I would say certainly that the colony is a planned community. It was developed by private funds. It was well laid out. The engineering was very good. The major arteries of transportation. I think that these have all been advantageous in the beginning of a small community from 1974, a beginning time of May, until, let us say, this month of May in 1985, a growth in population from 0 to 17,350. A growth in homesteads. There were probably a few old houses here and there, most of them rather decrepit, but in a planned community now some 6,036 households. It's pretty good for an 11-year period of time.
Certainly is. Any other comments?
I think it will continue to grow. I think they will have their problems as they grow. I hope, and I'm most sincere in this, that they do get industry nearby. And certainly I hope that their transportation problem is overcome. those are the two biggies that I see.
The biggest problems that are still yet to be resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we appreciate the contribution that you've made for this project in allowing us to use your research and supplying us with a great deal of significant background information on this area. And we want again to say thank you, and we appreciate your participation.
You're most welcome for anything I have.
Great. Thank you. Okay. That was good.